Hey Pixelers, it's Michael Haddon here, and today we have some really bad news that I thought would be really good to share with you guys. So, a while ago we had this post on the GitHub subreddit, which is Weaveworks seems to be disintegrating. Entire staff is looking for new jobs on LinkedIn, and they have a net worth value of negative £34 million. Reddit is speculating what's going on here. We also had this post here, someone just casually asked, was there any layoffs for Kubernetes developers? And this top post here says the entire Weaveworks company went down, which is completely based on Kubernetes. So there is that. And it turns out that this person worked for Weaveworks, kind of announced it slightly ahead of time than he should have. And as Tech Data says here, Weaveworks raised a substantial amount of money along the way, over 61 million. Its last round was 36 million, but as you can see with, I assume, the interest rates changed and companies being more hesitant to do big projects, this has obviously dramatically affected the capital that Weaveworks could raise. Now, this is really sad because Weaveworks was really at the heart of this cloud-native Kubernetes, this modern way of doing infrastructure. So it's really sad to see this company hit. And we have a post here by the CEO himself with the official announcement, which was today, 7 hours ago, which, explains the difficulties the company went through. The bit that I like the most is this bit here, they had an exciting stories from the early days of containers to getting the first Kubernetes cluster working on Azure, the start of the CNCF, when they had some humorous anecdotal situations. But it's all sad to see that it's all coming to an end. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Importantly, though, on a more brighter note, he is openly inviting anyone who reads this and wants to know what's next to contact him and see where this can go. So hopefully this isn't the end of the innovation that Weaveworks started, and we might see the next big break from them in the future. Hopefully. Now, you may be wondering who Weaveworks even were. They were the GitOps guys. They were the people who pioneered this modern way of working, this auditable, secure, manageable, observable way of managing. Initially, obviously, Kubernetes, but this whole concept could be applied to infrastructure as a whole. So right now, it is really a Kubernetes philosophy, but this GitOps is the center of, in my opinion, the future of managing infrastructure systems, because the auditability is so great. So their role in the whole Kubernetes ecosystem is greatly important, which is why it's such a shame to see them disappearing. Now, you might know them from the tool they created, which was FluxCD, the really lightweight GitOps tool. It doesn't have an interface like Argo CD, but it's much more lightweight and efficient, and it had a lot more cool toolings around it than Argo CD does. For example, with Flagger and other tools they created, you had a lot more mature different types of deployment than Argo CD does. But that's not all they did. They also created EKS-CTL, so if you've ever tried to make an Amazon EKS cluster, you'll know this is the best tool to use. It was always the most efficient, the easiest to define. I always use this tool whenever I was making any sort of Kubernetes clusters on Amazon. Also, additionally, they had their software-defined networking stack called WeaveNet. Now, I understand this has been sidelined over the past few years because I don't think it's actually received any updates in the past 2 years. However, it was also at the time quite innovative, and it's also obviously such a shame to see this technology die. Now, the good news is when it comes to FluxCD and EKS-CTL and a lot of the other tools they created, they will continue to live on, because if we come to the CNCF page, we can see that Flux is a graduated member of the CNCF, so that project will continue to live on regardless of WeaveNet's disappearance. And we will also see that AWS is now maintaining EKS-CTL. Now, there is more things that Weaveworks did. For example, they created Cortex, which is the multi-tenant Prometheus system. It's honestly so good if you need a multi-tenant setup. This is also part of the CNCF, but it's an incubating project, which means I'm not entirely sure right now how likely the survivability of this project will be, because I don't know if that means all of these development resources are now going to be pulled away from Cortex. Also, one of the reasons why this is such a shame is Weaveworks always created these really lovely guides. So, for example, they have these blog articles like Guide to GitOps, and they explain in so much detail, so much information, what GitOps is, what the different principles are, how it all works. They really innovated in this space, which is why it's such a shame to see this company struggle and die. We're missing out on such a breadth and depth of information and knowledge. But it's not all bad. There is now Control Plane, which is reselling the services which Weaveworks created as enterprise versions. But the cool thing is if you look here, we can see Stefan here. And I know from memory, if you'd ever looked at any of the GitHub repositories of Weaveworks, that Stefan's name was everywhere. So it looks like Stefan, being one of the core engineers at Weaveworks, has now moved over to Control Plane. So it may be that Control Plane becomes the spiritual successor to Weaveworks. We'll have to see. Now, the weird thing about the cloud-native space is it's not turned out to be very profitable for a lot of companies. For example, if we remember a few years back, we had Docker, who really struggled to maintain profitability and raise capital. Several years ago, they had to sell off so many of their different divisions of their company. It is also good news for Docker, because Docker has been doing quite good over the past 2 years, going from what everyone thought was basically a dead company after laying off 80% of their team, and now being evaluated at 135 million. This is great. However, it does beg the question, who has actually been profitable in this space so far? We do have all of the big cloud providers who are raking in a lot of money, but we have struggled to see any of the companies who are using that open source model to produce software actually raising significant amounts of money, which is a huge shame to say because I absolutely love using these tools. And obviously I create a career of providing these services to companies that I work for. So I thought it'd be good to get this video out so you guys can make some conscious decisions on your technical landscape. I do, however, think you probably don't need to change that much because FluxCD is still going to continue to exist as part of the CNCF. And a lot of the other tooling that Weaveworks created is also going to be living on. This is one of the great things of companies who create open source licenses for their tooling is the project can live on even if the company dies. And I hope that's the outcome we're going to see here, especially if we see people like Stefan, who are primary engineers behind Weaveworks, still continuing in a similar capacity, but with a new company. And let's just hope we can continue to use these great tools that have completely changed the industry. Anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely day. Cheers.